Welcome to the Road to Indy. Missions is the reason we cooperate as a convention. And on this week's episode of the Road to Indy, presented by Southern Seminary and Boyce College, we are joined by the president of the International Mission Board, Paul Chitwood, for an update on the work of the IMB and this year's sending celebration at the annual meeting. Dr. Chitwood, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jonathan. I always look forward to this conversation every year. It's a great opportunity to not only voice my own excitement about everything that's planned for the annual meeting, but to be able to share with you in just the many ways God is at work through Southern Baptists around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I mentioned the sending celebration at the annual meeting, and that has become a centerpiece of our gathering every June. So talk to us about this year's and what it means to the missionaries that are being sent to be prayed for, to be sent out by their fellow Southern Baptists.
Hey, what an encouragement it is, and what a privilege we have at the IMB of serving Southern Baptists in carrying out the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations. Together, Southern Baptists are addressing the world's greatest problem, which is lostness. And we know the solution is the gospel, but the biblical way of getting that solution around the world is through a missionary presence. And this is what Southern Baptists have been doing since 1845, sending those missionaries out. And for us to get to celebrate that together as a denominational family at such a large gathering, it's just such a shot in the arm, I think, for the pastors and church members, for Southern Baptists who are there in the room, but it's also a huge shot in the arm to our missionaries. And I'm not just talking about those who are being appointed, while what an incredible memory it creates for them of being there on that large stage and being in front of so many who are praying for them and cheering them on. But we did something unique this past year. We recorded a lot of different greetings, as you know, from Southern Baptists who were at that annual meeting. We shared that with all of our missionaries all around the world. And it was just such a lift to them to know that they were focused, as you said, sort of the centerpiece of the annual meeting. And as I often say, this is what brought Southern Baptists together. It's what will keep us together.
Now, something that you and I have talked about over the years when we've been doing these interviews the past few years is the missionary pipeline. And that's something that I know you've been very passionate about rebuilding and really filling there at the IMB. So how does this event at the annual meeting really help you motivate and call others to mission?
Well, this is, as you know, as you referenced, this is something we've been working really, really hard on at the IMB. Our pipeline was down to near nothing when I started in the role, building that up, then getting the blow of COVID. It was really last year that we began to see us reach the heights that we were longing to see us reach so we can grow our mission force around the world. In fact, it was right at about the time of the annual meeting that we hit over 1,300 missionaries in the pipeline. And we haven't been there in literally years and years and years. So that was so encouraging. One of the things that we launched at last year's annual meeting was our program of trying to get to those remaining unreached and unengaged people groups. And so we were talking to messengers, and I shared it in my report about our desire to see more people coming through the pipeline with that on their heart, willing to go to the hard places, willing to do some research, willing to help us build connections to those remaining UUPGs. So we have seen, coming out of the convention last year, a significant uptick in the numbers who are applying to be a part of that very effort. So I'm going to be able to come this year and give an update on that. Here's what has happened over the course of the last year. And I was just talking this morning with our team member who really leads our recruiting efforts and the processing of candidates in the pipeline. Of course, it's a large team, but the director who sits top of that, Scott Ray, was sharing with me that it won't surprise him if by this year's annual meeting, we're topping 1,400 in the numbers of candidates in the pipeline. So that's huge. And we've talked a little bit about how those numbers work before. It's about 25, 30% of people who apply who actually make it overseas. Others maybe discern in the process that, well, the Lord was stirring in my heart, but not for this. Or there's some disruption, medical issue, what have you, family issue. But when we're on a pace of like 1,400, what the end result is at the IMB is growth. And we're wanting to see more workers make it to those harvest fields and to be able to celebrate that with Southern Baptist annual meeting, and to be able to deepen our partnerships with them through that gathering is it's just incredible opportunity for us.
Yeah, and to see that 3,000 unengaged, unreached people groups, that number shrinking because of the
Yes,
work that the IMB is doing, and that I know right there. I mean, I can't wait to celebrate that, and I can't wait for the updates that we're going to get in June. And one of the ways you're engaging people around the world is with partnership with NAM and Send Relief. So that's something that you guys came together with a few years ago. You guys handle the foreign, the worldwide side of that. NAM handles
right,
the
right,
domestic side of that.
right.
And there's been a lot going on overseas this year that Sin Relief has been a part of. I mean, we've seen the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel and Gaza, and like that's just a couple of pieces. You got the earthquakes recently in Tokyo or in Japan. So I mean,
Yes.
IMB is involved in a lot of different places that Southern Baptists may not know about, may not realize because of the work of Sin Relief.
Yeah, well, as you've gone through some of those places where tragedy and travesty has stricken, whether it's wars, natural disasters, and my mind is immediately flooded with many others.
Mhm.
What a remarkable privilege Southern Baptists have to know that essentially in all those places we mentioned and so many more, and every story they're seeing on the news headlines every day, they are there. Southern Baptists are there. They're there giving relief, meeting the physical needs of those who are homeless or who are refugees or who's victims of floods, earthquakes, wars. And they are there, more importantly, sharing the hope of the gospel and eternal hope, addressing the greatest problem each individual, each human being has. And so, I think all of us have our heartstrings pulled when we see people hurting, when we see these tragedies unfolding, and then to know that, well, we can respond. We can actually
Yeah.
do something. And certainly we can all pray, and we're thankful for the prayers of people in all of those situations. But in practical, tangible ways, we can also make an impact through our missionaries on the field who have Send Relief resources. So many generous givers to Send Relief are making it possible for us to extend a helping hand further than ever before. And also, that goes with the extension of the gospel to more
Yeah.
people than ever before.
Yeah, so you mentioned giving to Sin Relief and the ability that you're able to share the gospel through compassion ministry. But we're just coming off of probably one of the most successful Lottie Moon Christmas offering seasons we've seen in some time. I mean, you're coming off a couple of record years over the past few years, and this year looks to be pretty good as well.
Oh, well, it does. In fact, we're just humbled and blown away by what the Lord is doing and what Southern Baptist is doing, just the generosity. I'm so grateful for it, Jonathan, grateful for every pastor who is championing cooperative missions in the Southern Baptist Convention. The cooperative program is a lifeblood to the IMB. And then the Lottie offering is that other huge revenue stream that we depend on, our missionaries depend on. And as you referenced, the last couple of years have been record-setting years. We haven't ever even got close to the last 2 years in our history. This year, now it's early. Our fiscal year runs through
Yeah,
September 30th, but we're on record pace. In
amazing.
fact, even surpassing the last 2 years right now. So we're praying that holds. We're praying that the giving that wraps up the fiscal year pushes us over that $200 million goal. That's a huge goal,
Yeah,
but we're looking really good right now. And just to be able to celebrate that right now with Southern Baptist, be able to come to the annual meeting and in person celebrate the generosity is a blessing. It's something very special. And as you know, every penny that's given through the Lottie offering is used on the front lines of the mission field. None of that for sport work here in the U.S. Every penny goes there. There's no other organization that Southern Baptist could support that can make that pledge and that promise. And that's because the cooperative program
yeah,
is taking care of those support service needs here at home. Now, most CP dollars that come to the IMB are also used. In
there.
fact,
Yeah,
60
still
plus
in the
percent
field.
CP dollars are used on the frontline mission work overseas. They are given through the IMB, so that's great too. But every penny of the lottery offering is used there. And Southern Baptist, obviously, they believe in what we're doing together. They believe in their IMB. They believe in what it's going to take to get the gospel to those remaining unreached and unengaged people groups. We have to get a missionary to them. And we're positioned right now to send more missionaries. We're grateful.
That's absolutely incredible. And as we approach June, Dr. Chitwood, what is one way Southern Baptists maybe watching this at home can pray for you and the IMB and the missionaries across the world?
So I think for the missionaries, what I always pray for missionaries is what I would encourage Southern Baptists to pray for them. Many of them, as we know, serve in incredibly difficult circumstances, physically demanding, spiritually demanding. They're on the front lines of spiritual warfare. Just pray the Lord would keep them healthy, physically, spiritually, emotionally, their families strong and healthy, marriages strong and healthy, so they can be effective in their work. And then pray the Lord will give them fruit. They all go with a longing to see people saved. Not one of those missionaries has capacity to save a single person, but the Lord can, and the Lord can use them in that work. So they want to see fruit. They long to see fruit. We're seeing fruit, but we want to see more fruit because lostness is a growing problem. And so just to pray that the Lord give them fruit. As far as our support team here in the U.S., just Lord give us wisdom as we lead a large organization. We want to serve well our missionaries. We want to serve well Southern Baptists. So might the Lord give us grace and wisdom to that end.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Chitwood. We appreciate all that you do for the IMB and for Southern Baptist, both here in the U.S. and around the world. And for those of you watching at home, we want to remind you that your road to Indy and your road back home can include a quick side trip to Southern Seminary and Boys College. You can go to sbts.edu/road trip to see what Southern has planned for SBC 24 road trippers just like you. That's sbts.edu/road trip. And you can find out what you can see at Southern Seminary right there in Louisville on the way to Indianapolis. Again, we hope to see you in Indianapolis this June. Join us next week as we discuss the crossover and the Serve Tour right here on the Road to Indy, presented by Southern Seminary and Boys College.